Hello everyone. The last time I had one of these devices, a Barracuda 210 web filter, it was their previous generation one, which was more like a 1U rack mount computer, of which you could actually reset or take to bits, plug your own hard disk into it, and it was easy to get or find on the internet the BIOS password, so you could reconfigure it to do what you wanted it to do. This one is the one which is the generation thereafter. I'm just going to quickly stick something over the serial numbers on it, and not sure whether Barracuda would ever watch this video and care that it was taken to bits and then get in touch with the original owner. So yeah, this one's not rack mounted, which is quite annoying, because if under warranty you had your rack mount one replaced, you would receive this thing, which isn't rack mount, which is quite annoying. And but the big advantage of this new one is it is fanless. There, at least, is pretty silent, and this whole top thing, as you might be able to tell from the texture, is a heatsink. So that's quite a good idea for small installations, and especially, say, home or small office installations, although not you'd ever have one of these at home. Silent working is pretty good. So let's see whether we can get this. I don't actually know how this opens, so I'm going at this blind. While we're at it as well, they changed the power. As far as I remember, the power would have been just a kettle, what I call a kettle lead, otherwise known as an IEC lead. It probably has a specific number, but those three prong like that. But yes, this smaller one was changed to be a power brick, as you see at the back here, or sorry, on your right there, to essentially almost like a laptop connector, but with a captive screw terminal, which is quite an interesting idea. It means it just can't, if you're moving wires around in the back of the cabinet, it doesn't just become unplugged, so it's not a terrible idea really. These devices you plug in and then plug a keyboard in, and you configure the IP address if it's the first time you're setting them up. So yeah, I'm hoping to reuse this and see. I'll film that process if it is possible. So just undoing those two top screws hasn't really released anything. There's some screws along here. Let's undo more and find out. So that's 3 of those done, but I'm pretty sure there's more that I need to undo. So let's go into the side here. See, warranty void if removed, so it's also got to be held in probably over there through that very important warranty sticker, which I'm in no way going to remove. Oh dear, warranty's void now. Never mind. Wow, the entire top seems to have like almost spring-loaded popped out. Really quite weird. Let's do the other side. Not sure whether this one here really needs to be undone. This one at the front might not need to be undone, but I'll do it anyway. Whoa, dear me. Well, that was fun. Try and put the camera back. Right, okay, well, that was interesting. This is actually quite a heavy plate with 2 big chunks of metal to then some thermal, well, almost looks not like thermal paste, but almost like a thermal sticker that was put on, which then goes down and goes on to, I presume, the processor there, and then probably the North Bridge or something there, so the chipset. And what do we have inside? We have an Asus motherboard, some laptop memory. What is it? DDR3 1066, 2 gigabytes. So actually quite easily upgradable for more RAM in here. There's an extra slot there. We've got a very bizarre ATX power supply, or a converter. So the power comes in. Whoa. Let me do it this way round, to your orientation, not to mine. Also, this lighting really is terrible. Power comes in over here, goes along, 2 white and black wire to over there, to this bizarre creation, which is clipped in at the back here, so we'll have to put that down while I extract it. Right, what is this contraption? So soldered on, I can't even easily remove it, but yeah, it's a little board on an ATX type connector with power, which then goes off to the disk drive. So that one there splits off to the disk drive, and then also splits off to the second power connector on the motherboard. Quite a fancy or a bizarre setup there, however, I guess it works for them. Plug that back in. It might be quite good for some other computer if you want something which takes, how many voltages is it? It takes 12 volts, potentially up to 5 amps. You could plug that into another motherboard. Take this entire thing out. You need to desolder that though, or undo that and remove it from all the fascia or trim. So we've got the multi connector for the front panel with the LEDs and the power light go along to this connector here. Whoa! It's not just a single connector, it's a bunch of individual ones, a bit like if you're ever building your own computer, you get lots of individual jumpers. So that will just be the power light, the hard disk light, and the reset switch are all just standard computer ones there. Some connector over here in this bit at the back of the machine. What's that? One wire, black wire, that snakes off into possibly the front panel connector. Yeah, onto the front panel connector. I wonder what that's for. Is that a parallel header? Further research online for the AT5NM10T-I motherboard, which is in the device, shows that is a parallel header. As with the rack mount one, it has this really funky little network card with its own, I don't know what you call it, like gauze to try and keep it in place because it's not held in with any screws. And I can't quite remember, but I expect it's Realtek network cards that are on it. Let's see if I can extract it. So last one I think was a standard PCI, whereas this is what looks like a PCI Express. Now I can get to the connector. Hopefully I can pull this hot melt glued thing off. So there's 2 network cards, or network interfaces obviously. There is actually a third one on the motherboard itself, so if you're turning this into something else you can probably get 3 network cards out of it, as long as your operating system supports the drivers for whatever this thing is. And actually it's not particularly obvious. You've got PLX technology as one of the things on one of the chips, and then no Realtek or anything particularly obvious. But it's a Barracuda BENT 0 254 Q and then a dash QFN, or otherwise got another part number of PEW1-2 part LAN QFN PF. Anyway, plug that back in. So what do we have also? 320 gig hard disk, serial ATA, and two network interfaces here with two extra cables. I wonder what those are. They might be earthing. Doesn't have anything written on where they plug in. So, had a loss. We've got 3 other spare serial ATA ports if you wanted to use them. It's just a standard MIDI ITX maybe motherboard. PCIe x4, that port there. Yeah, okay, well I think let's put some thermal paste back on it, put the lid back on, because I don't fancy blowing the thing up really yet. So actually those 2 screws under that panel, those 2 panels I didn't want to undo. They hold those metal blocks in place, so I'll definitely want to put those back on anyway. Do those first so they don't potentially fall off or move around. I can see why they had to glue those in. They're definitely, and if you turn the thing upside down and shake it, they'll just fall out. So I can see why they had to glue them. There's obviously quite a bit of tension on this, because look how much that tries to jump out if it's not held in place with the screws. Right, let me move the camera around, plug it into a monitor, and we'll see what we can do. So here goes, I've got it hooked up to a monitor. Let's see whether USB keyboards work. The original rack mount one, you had to use a PS2 keyboard, which is actually incredibly frustrating. Right, it does have a BIOS password. Give me a moment to look up what it used to be, and let's hope that it's still that. Internet says it is all capitals BCNDK numeral 1. Yes, it is. So we are in. So you definitely can use this machine for whatever you want it to be rather than whatever they wanted it to be. It's not a particularly good machine. It is an Intel Atom D525 at 1.8 gigahertz. Yeah, not great, but also could be worse. Chipset, off bridge. Nothing particularly exciting within there. Onboard devices, onboard LAN. ATA controller. USB enabled, speed mode. 2 gigs of RAM, as we already know. So for an incredibly quiet computer, if you basically don't throw out one of these machines, you could use it as possibly a network attached storage, a router for anything that probably doesn't need PPP, OE, which seems to have quite a lot of high CPU usage on some systems. Yeah, it's pretty good. So fan speed not available because it doesn't have a fan. It is entirely quiet and fanless. Booting off the hard disk. Right, what I'm keen on trying is seeing if I can get it to boot off of USB. So let's see if we can get a boot device selection on the screen somehow. Not all of the obvious ones. Also, not all of the unobvious ones, so probably have to go into BIOS and see whether we can enable USB boot. So capitals B, C, N, D, K, 1. It's possible that they've maimed it so you can only boot off of... Oh no, you can boot off of USB. There we go. Well, okay, that answers that. You can definitely boot off with USB. Let's see whether Macrium knows about the drivers for the network card. And it does. Fantastic. So, do we get device manager on this thing? We should be so lucky. Intel network cards, apparently. So that's plugged. The thing I've plugged into is the the one that's marked LAN of the two extra network cards. So it's not the one that's on the motherboard. So that's quite good that Windows, at least Windows 10, has inbuilt support for it. So you've got the what do we have here? The first of the ones that are on that expansion board, or sorry, the last of them, because it's the Ethernet 2 on the ones on the expansion board, which is an Intel, and they're gigabit as well. So actually, pretty good, this machine. Other than the CPU, it's pretty good. And then the onboard one, also a gigabit one, built into the motherboard. Get installing Windows on it. I will probably also fit an SSD to see, or basically make it as quick as it can be, because it's already a fairly bad processor. Okay, so I've upgraded it to 6 gigs of RAM, so I've added an extra 4 gigs, and changed it over to, if I can find the boot options, a crucial 128GB SSD. Alrighty, so here goes. Let's see whether we can get Windows installed on this. 6 gigs of RAM, an Atom processor, so quite weedy, but with an SSD, so hopefully it should perform vaguely okay. Nope, doesn't like booting off of that, so I probably need to go and change something in BIOS. Okay, so that's installed, and it's actually fairly quick loading up menus and task manager, and just generally clicking around, bearing in mind it also doesn't have a proper graphics card installed. It also doesn't have in Windows 7 the network card drivers either for the onboard one or the expansion card, so I'm going to have to download those and see if I can get it online, and then I'm going to also see how Windows 10 copes on this device. There's no point you watching the upgrade of that, so I'll be back once that's done. Okay, it took a while. I left it going overnight, and here we are. It's now got Windows 10 on it, and generally clicking around is not too bad. It doesn't have any proper graphics card drivers, so it's using almost like, I guess, maybe emulated graphics. Remote desktoping into it would be a lot nicer or higher frame rate moving stuff around. So yeah, it's just using the WDDM, I think, like emulated or basic drivers. It does have built-in, or at least on Windows 10, not on Windows 7, it does have built-in network card drivers for the 3 network cards, which is pretty good. And what else is going to look at? It can run Windows 64-bit, which is good. So if you needed just a really basic Windows machine, either for like a display board or something, or a machine to run, especially with 3 gigabit network cards, a routing operating system, that would be fairly good. I also think that it doesn't have USB 3, but if you wanted to attach a load of USB 2 drives to it, or somehow fit, which isn't going to be very easy, some drives inside the chassis of this, it's got 3 unused, other than the operating system one, it's got 3 unused Serial ATA headers on the motherboard. There's also grills on the side of the case where you could pull Serial ATA leads out the side and have the drives hanging around on the edge or something. It wouldn't be particularly pretty, but you know, it's a free computer, free kind of servery, nice industrial type case. So there you go, it does run Windows, not fantastically, but let's just quickly browse the internet. it's totally acceptable speed browsing around. Let's try YouTube. And that one takes quite a bit longer, and that's definitely CPU speed. So you can see down in here the CPU's hitting the top. It's not drive speed, so I look at the front of the machine and it's not sitting there churning through hard disk or anything like that. So yeah, pretty good. Don't throw away these Barracuda 210s, or possibly the other models as well, because you can unlock them, put your own drive in them, install your own operating system and use them for something. Wouldn't throw them away. Hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, it would be really helpful to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my YouTube channel. You don't need to have the video notifications switched on, but the subscriber numbers really do help. Thank you very much.